wish to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we meet and pay our respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. We're also delighted to have Shane Kennelly, who today will welcome us to country. Shane is a proud Bundjalung man. He owns an engineering construction company that works on country right around Australia. He's a director of the board of EWB and chair of our strategic planning committee. Welcome, Shane.
Thanks, Gavin. It's my pleasure to be a part of the development of our 2030 strategy. We've taken the opportunity to look back at our past achievements, celebrate and learn, and now it's time for us to turn our attention to the future. As a proud Bundjalung engineer, I'm following in the footsteps of our old people, who for more than 60,000 years have been engineering and innovating a sustainable existence for us all to enjoy today. The bagan, or boomerang, which in Western engineering is an asymmetric aerofoil, is just one example of how our people have been engineering for tens of thousands of years. With that, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I am on today, the Cubby Cubby country, which is on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. And I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging. I hope you all enjoyed today's event and we all take the time to stop, take our shoes off and connect with the country that you're on currently and reflect and learn from the oldest living culture. Thank you, and I'll hand it back to Gavin. Have a great day.
I'm out here in Brisbane on Yagara and Turrbal country and proud to be able to recognise the First Nations people who've made such a difference and continue to be such an important part of our community. Well, to kick things off, I'll give you some introductory remarks and then you'll hear from our CEO, Eleanor Loudon. She'll chair a panel comprising people at the forefront of our journey. Then you'll have a chance to ask questions of the panel and I'll wrap up the event at the end. To set the scene for the future, let's talk about the past. Thanks to our founder, Danny Almagor, and his very dedicated friends, EWB has been contributing in Australia and internationally for the past 17 years. In 2015, we set our sights 50 years into the future and created a strategy to focus on the first 5 years. As we were focused on the future, we called that document our 2020 strategy. It's 2020 and we've achieved a lot over the last 5 years. Here are just a few examples. 3/4 of Australian engineering students undertake the EWB challenge in their first year. That's about 10,000 students every year learning and applying human-centered engineering skills they'll be able to apply throughout their career. Biodigesters is a technology that emerged from an EWB challenge. The prototypes were refined thanks to funding from Bill and Melinda Gates and turned into a social business thanks to Google funding. In the past 5 years, 1,500 biodigesters have been installed in Cambodia, and now ATEC is expanding into Bangladesh. So thousands of more families will benefit from clean cooking using biogas. Nearly 2,000 university students have participated in design summits, which are a 2-week in-country, in-community experience to develop the students' human-centered engineering skills and identify potential solutions with and importantly for the communities. We've placed dozens of field professionals in partner organisations in Asia and the Pacific, focused on capacity development. In fact, we worked in 18 countries over the last 17 years. We've developed solutions that have benefited tens of thousands of people, including key projects focused on women and people with disabilities. We've conducted immersive experiences for engineering professionals on country here in Australia and internationally. We are very proud of our achievements, but the story doesn't stop there. There's much more to be done. So, what about the future? There are many important imperatives deserving time and attention. For example, the fast changing climate, environmental degradation, increasing people movement, and increasing inequality. We have purposely aligned our 2030 strategy and the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs as we know them, because the SDGs are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. To achieve the goals of the SDG globally, we want to play our part in creating a more equitable and sustainable future for all. Our strategy is aspirational, and we think inspirational, and importantly, impact-driven. We have set bold goals. For example, that more than 1 million people have equitable access to technology, to live well and pursue their aspirations sustainably as a clear result of our work. At EWB, we're on a mission. We'll be working with our partners, supporters and donors to harness the potential of engineering to create an equitable reality for the planet and its people. We see a world where technology benefits all. So, I hear you asking, who are some of the people at the forefront of this exciting journey? Eleanor Loudon is our CEO of EWB Australia. She has significant experience in managing for-purpose organisations, leadership, and working cross-culturally. She's worked nationally and internationally throughout her career. Today, Eleanor will be unpacking the strategy a little more and facilitating a panel discussion on what might be possible through implementation of our 2030 strategy. But before we get to that insightful discussion, we have a little video to introduce you to the strategy and our commitment to creating a world where technology benefits all.
We are living in a time of extreme social inequality
and environmental degradation.
The way we continue to develop society can make this better.
Or worse. Engineers and the engineering community can
and should
be taking an active role in creating a fairer and more equitable future for all.
All individuals.
All societies.
All forms of life.
All aspects of the environment.
For all generations.
We can
and should
be engineering with the social, environmental and economic needs
balanced as fairly as possible.
We have access to the technology,
the thought leadership,
the human capital
to actually make this a reality.
At Engineers Without Borders Australia,
we have made it our purpose
to harness the potential of engineering to create an equitable reality
for the planet and its people.
Our mission is to redefine the purpose and impact of engineering
as a critical enabler of sustainable development.
Through influencing and educating engineers in the broader engineering sector.
And by delivering engineering solutions
that reduce vulnerability
and are regenerative.
We believe that creating a fairer and more equitable future for all
must happen
and is indeed
absolutely possible.
It is possible. It is possible to change the world for all humans and living creatures.
It is possible to create a positive change and to act now.
It's possible to have a world where all children like me have access to safe water.
Well, here we go, launching our 10-year strategy. It's the first step on a big journey. We've got an exciting and inspiring Northern Star to guide us. Thank you to those of you who are part of that video. Whenever I watch it, I just feel like, yeah, we've done something right. We're on the right track here. In 10 years' time, 1 million people will have benefited from EWB's work. EWB is a network though, and we can't do this without you, as that video shows, right? We do this together. Today we have an esteemed panel of expertise, and that expertise brings together engineering, sustainable development, engagement, and the social sciences, because that's who we are. We firmly believe that technology and the intersection with society is a complex and important relationship to understand. And starting with that understanding, we teach engineering and we practice engineering consciously. What does that mean for EWB in the next 10 years? You're about to find out. But essentially what we're going to be doing is understanding what it means when the engineering sector takes leadership, when we practice as technology stewards. We'll be testing this, we'll be exploring this, and we'll be sharing what we learn. Because this story is really important. It's really important right now, and it's going to be critically important in the next 10 years. It's a compelling story, and it's a necessary story, and it starts today. So I'm going to kick off today's panel with Gaetano. So Gaetano has worked extensively and lived extensively in the region, from Bangladesh to Timor-Leste, across the Pacific. He's got a wealth of engineering expertise and education expertise, and he heads up our engineering program. And there's a big focus on, a refocus on engineering in this next 10-year strategy. Gaetano, what are some of the challenges that we're seeing in engineering, and how will that be addressed in this strategy as we go forward?
Thanks Eleanor for your question, and good afternoon everyone. Yes, Eleanor, we live in a world that is changing very, very rapidly. And the engineering sector is called to answer questions and find solutions that require an increasing level of complexity. You know, my mind goes immediately to the challenges that we as engineers need to address to minimize the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and also the serious challenges related to climate change. There is a lot to do. When I visited one of the communities we work with in Cambodia, this was last year before COVID-19, farmers were really desperate. The changed rain patterns are having a huge negative impact on farm production and their families' livelihoods. The water infrastructure they have in place are no longer suitable. So now more than ever, the world really needs new technologies, infrastructure that are respectful of the environment and can be adapted and adaptable, new medical equipment. Yeah. And now our new strategy 2020-2030, because it focuses on technology development, really captures those needs. The work we are doing to develop different and unconventional technologies like new water systems in Cambodia, or alternative systems to provide oxygen to patients in hospitals and patients that cannot reach a hospital. They totally reflect our new strategy, but they also talk of a positive impact that we can have on people's lives.
Yeah, that's a really good summary. Historically, up until today, we're really focusing on 4 countries, including Australia. And we've really got a strong foundation and legacy in the WASH sector, the water sanitation sector. How is that going to change in this new strategy?
Yeah, the new strategy builds on the work we have done in the last 10 years, as Gavin was saying before. And we will continue working in water and sanitation, for example, because we see the value of that work. But we do not want to give ourselves tight boundaries, I would say. And we are keen to explore new technical pathways and new geographical pathways. This, of course, within the space of technology development. And I see an important role for the communities we work with and for our partners, the partners we work with, in identifying the specific technologies that we want to work in the future. The ultimate goal being the well-being of the most vulnerable people.
Yeah, yeah. Ali, over to you. With your background in the environment and civil engineering, but now, you know, good 6 years working in our education program with EWB and now heading that up. Talk to me about what you see in this new strategy for the education sector in engineering.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Eleanor. And yeah, I've been with the organization for 6 years, but we've also been working in the education space for over a decade. And so I think what's really exciting about where we're moving forward is that we're building on really strong foundations across all of our work. What we're seeing is, as Gaetano, as you mentioned, as Gavin, you introduced, and as Eleanor, as you shared as well, we recognize that the world is rapidly changing. There's so much visibility around these complex challenges that we know the entire globe is facing. And what we're seeing from the engineering sector and from education is an engineering sector that is understanding the need to act. There is this shift in consciousness that we're seeing. We had the World Engineers Convention last year that was focused around engineering a sustainable world. The entire convention focused on that theme. We're seeing 168, I took the note earlier, 168 engineering organizations that had signed up to Engineers declaring a climate and biodiversity emergency. So for our role as EWB, supporting the sector that is aiming for this change and acknowledging this responsibility, and an education sector that knows that they want to develop the future engineers who can operate in this way and are equipped with the skills to navigate that complexity and ready to make a meaningful contribution. It means our role doesn't necessarily have to be to push. Our role can be to enable. And EWB has been great at that over time, and we'll continue to grow how we can work in this space. What's really exciting for me, and I think those of us who are working really closely with a lot of our partners, is that it means that we can continue growing and expanding those really deep partnerships with those who are on the journey with us, and we can enable the work that we're doing together through the unique value that we bring across all of our work. For individuals, it also means that we can support those more tied together pathways. It's not just one program you can work on, it's an entire pathway that you can go through, and it's this identity that you can bring to your engineering career.
Yeah, fantastic. If out there in the audience, we're so excited that you're here, and I feel like you're in the room with us. Please put through some questions. We're excited to start to answer some of them shortly. George, we're hearing that the sector is changing. I'm really interested to hear from your perspective as a social scientist working with engineers, and us recognizing how important it is that engineering is recognizing its complex relationship with society. I'm interested to hear what you think on all of this.
Yeah, so thanks, Eleanor. Welcome everyone. Really lovely to have the opportunity to talk a bit more about this particular part of the strategy that we're launching today. So I'm really thinking about some of the influence elements, and I think everyone before me has actually summed it up much better than I can. So in terms of where the why and why it is that the sector is starting to take this, or starting to move in this direction. One of the things I think we've seen a lot, I've been really lucky. I've been working with the education team for 2 years now with research on the research program. And a lot of those students are ones that are just on the cusp of moving into their professional careers. And through the programs they've been engaging with us around, they've really developed some great skills around human-centered engineering design, and many other things that really encourage inclusive engineering outcomes and processes, which are really going to be critical to try and address some of the challenges that we've recognized. One thing we've noticed from them is that sometimes there's this perception that when they move into the sector, they haven't necessarily got as many opportunities that they would expect or hope to have to actually apply those skills. So really, you know, you can build these skills in people, but you also need a sector that expects and promotes their application. So, and one of the things I think I feel really lucky that I've managed to, I've been lucky enough to join Engineers Without Borders as a social scientist, because for me, EWB is really well positioned to conduct research, produce tools and partner to help inform the sector on how to adopt that role. So one thing is recognizing the complexity and that interrelationship between technology and society. It's another thing to be able to act on that knowledge. And I think we're really well positioned to do that. We have partners, really great partners in the engineering sector, in the development sector, and the education sector. And there aren't really many organizations that have that, if any, really. And And we've been working on inclusive engineering processes and outcomes for years. So I first met Engineers Without Borders Australia when I was in Cambodia. They're working with a few different development organizations, and I was just blown away by those field professionals and the way they could genuinely create community engagement in design processes and ensure that those outcomes are equitable. So I think there's so much experience we can draw on there and share with the sector to really inform and help them take up that leadership role in this space.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really exciting part of this strategy, and we've always had social equity and sustainability at the core of what EWB believes in, but to call that out in this strategy as one of our 5 pillars, I think it's really super exciting. So yeah, Luella, you've got a background in engagement, and one of our other pillars is around our network and how we really can't do this alone, and we keep hearing that from all our panelists so far. Talk to me about that, what that engagement of our network means in action. What does that look like in action for the next period going forward?
Yeah, sure. And it's a really important point that people making their contribution to EWB is such an essential part of our work. So one of the mechanisms that we've previously enabled people to engage with us has been through a membership base. As part of our development for the strategy, we did a deep review of this, and we understood that our focus on membership and sort of the benefits model of membership was meant that people who wanted to engage with EWB struggled. Membership was creating sort of a sense of exclusion, which is the opposite of what we want or what we need. So we needed to make it much easier for people to engage in that way. So we've shifted this. We've actually, membership's still really critical. And indeed, with some constitutional changes made earlier this year, we now need to have 50% of membership represented on our board. So it's a really great opportunity still to be involved in our strategic implementation as well as the governance of the organisation. But we had a look at how we could extend our network community and deepen those opportunities for engagement. So key to this is really engaging with that network and through volunteering. Our network's really interesting. There's lots of ways. There's lots of organisations and groups that are part of our network. We work with government, we work with, here and overseas, we work with the academic sector, we work for other not-for-profit organisations, as well as our community of chapters, our alumni network, and as well as our volunteers. They're also a pretty diverse bunch. We're working with people from the age of 18 to 80. They're equally men and women. They're from many countries, many backgrounds, with differing engineering expertise and levels of experience. So we want to make it easy for all of that cohort to engage with us. So part of our work on this has been around mobilisation. So this was launched in 2019, and it's been a really successful start of a refreshed focus about enabling people and our extended bank of experienced EWBers to come in and actually live our principles, act and advocate and volunteer for the organisation. So that's something that we're sort of really keen to expand and amplify moving forward. Training is also really critical. We know through training programs that we've been running, which have sort of ended at the moment due to COVID and having access into community, that they're really powerful, they're really transformative, they're really critical engagement opportunities, and we hope to reactivate that when the time is right. That also includes our student study tours. And we also want to focus on fostering and sharing. So that's really embraced in the strategy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All of this is an amplification and a calling out of some of our core elements. It's putting some of our core elements up front and center. And yet there's a shift, right? There is a shift. There is a conscious shift into what does it look like to practice this kind of engineering, because it's not that easy. If it was easy, we would have been doing it for, engineering's been around, we know, in Australia for a long, long time. It's been around for a long time. So what is it, Gaetano? How are we starting to describe this kind of engineering? What's the approach that we're starting to take in this new strategy?
Yeah, you're totally right, Eleanor. Not all engineering projects are equally good. And actually, some of them are very divisive. They provide benefit to some people, and this is done at the expense of others. So what we have done in the last few years was to develop our unique technology development approach. And this is a body of processes, documents, and tools that guide us in the way we do technology development. And And our technology development approach really covers all the aspects of technology development, from the initial scope down to testing, prototyping, and scaling up and marketing the products or the technologies that we have explored. So what we want to do is really to ensure that the technologies are widely shareable, that meet the needs of the most vulnerable people, and are respectful of the environment. So we will talk more about that in a specific webinar that we are now organizing and will be run sometimes in November, and we will unpack all this with many details at the time.
Yeah, fantastic. And it requires it's not just about the process of engineering. There's a particular mindset that you need when you're thinking this way, or you're practicing engineering this way consciously. Ali, what do you think in terms of the education work that we do? What is it about this mindset that we're going to be integrating into our work?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Eleanor, because it's also something that EWB's referred to for a really long time, are those core capabilities, those core mindsets, those core ways of working that will enable you to engage on a variety of different engineering projects. What do you need to bring as an engineer and a human being to your work? And I think what EWB has always done really well through our education work that's integrated in the university curriculum, and through the training offerings that we offer independent of that, and the initiatives run locally at a chapter level as well by some of our pretty incredible volunteers. It's all around those pathways to developing those personal and professional skills and figuring out what some of these things that you hear about in theory might actually look like. So what does it mean to bring adaptability to your work? What does it mean to be able to manage ambiguity? What does it mean to be able to engage cross-culturally? There are things that both students and professionals know that they want to embrace, and EWB is excellent at helping people figure out what that can look like for them in practice, and creating those platforms for people to build experience, to build knowledge, to build understanding, and to build skills as well. So we've created those environments and are continuing to grow those safe spaces, those places appropriate for where you might be at, and those tools and resources to help you do so as well.
Yeah, and I think I think what I'm seeing in the new strategy, there is a real emphasis on the whole of life of an engineer, right? So we're doing really good in the education of students. Now we're moving into the support for professionals too, and George, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on some of that, because that's where you start to take technology stewardship, or the leadership sort of role going forward as a professional. So can you talk to me a little bit about what that looks like?
So I think we've been referring to the approaches and the sort of platforms and opportunities to build sort of specific skill sets around this. With the tech stewardship, it really is embracing that fuller understanding of engineering and the role it plays, and the outputs and the work that engineers do, as being something that adds value just in virtue of the impacts that it does have on society and the environment. If it doesn't have that, then why do it? But actually trying to extend some of the perceptions through the use of things like mindsets and different tools that we're hoping to help develop and share, to really understand what the broader impacts are. And that's really taking on some of the more some of the longer view or longer term understandings that we can draw on from First Nations understanding of the world, for example, to really think about, how does my work have a contribution, add or detract from inequality in the environment or future generations, and that big question around intergenerational justice. And really to do that, there's a number of things that we want to do. One thing that engineers will want to be able to be really confident in these kind of approaches. So generating the kind of evidence that's needed to actually navigate complexity with confidence is going to be a big part of what we're looking at. And we're already partnering some of our universities to start doing that kind of research, but actually looking at what that looks like in the Australian sector as well. It's going to be a really important part of it. And really to try and help the sector live up to those expectations around inclusivity. And we've got a number of tools that we think we know they work, but be able to share those stories really actively with the rest of the sector. So you can draw on those strategies to really start playing this tech stewardship role. And this is part of a more global movement, and amongst others like the responsible tech movement that we've already started to engage with at that global level. So to be really part of this bigger movement.
Fantastic. We're starting to get some really great questions coming through. There's a question for Ali from Jen. Is Jen going to come on? No. Okay, let me work out how I do this. Okay, so Ali, why the move away from education programs in Cambodia and Timor-Leste?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm happy to share the answer with Gaetano and others who are speaking to how we're focusing some of the energy that we're going to be directing into the future. So a lot of the work that we've been doing with the teams in Cambodia and Timor-Leste has been around how can we support individuals through mobilization platforms to contribute to EWB's work with communities that we're doing in country. There's been the shift towards, all right, so we've got an amazing network of individuals in this particular country who would like to contribute. How can we provide the training and the platforms for them to be mobilized to contribute into whatever kind of technology development projects that EWB is working on with communities? And so there is that opportunity to build experience and to build your skills and knowledge through that kind of direct supported engagement with the teams that are working on these projects day to day in country. Part of what that does mean is that it is starting to narrow the focus in on what is EWB's role in supporting the professional development of the engineering sector and individuals within it. And this is a way that we've viewed some of the EWB skills and experience and the resources of the team as being best placed going forward. And the aim is that it's an amazing opportunity for that education and training through a particular mechanism that's supported really holistically by the team that is in the office in whatever place that might be. But yeah, not sure if there's anything else, Gaetano or Eleanor, you'd like to add to that as well.
Gaetano,
yeah, just very quickly, a lot of the initiatives and activities that we have in the education program that's going to end this year will still retained in the Cambodia and Timor-Leste program. I guess the change is really about the fact that they will be a mechanism for us to reach the goal, and the goal is technology development. So the training, that part of training is no longer our goal, but remains in many ways in what we do as a mechanism to reach the goal of the new strategy, if it makes sense.
Yeah. So Shona, lovely to have you with us. Are you able to pop up? Oh, there you are.
Yes, I think I can.
Yeah, I can see you. Yep.
Hi. I had a question around the geographies that EWB is intending to work in over the next 10 years. So I'm hearing a lot of things about continued focus on collaboration and partnership and technology development, which is great. I'm wondering, with the countries that EWB is working in, is there any intention to look at changing or expanding, and perhaps some comments about how that links in with what I'm hearing about focusing on the most vulnerable and also climate change? So whether or not we'll be expanding in those areas, what that means in terms of place and geography.
Yeah,
thank
great
you.
question. Who'd like to take that? Gaetano?
Yeah. Yes, so we will continue working in the country where we are now, traditionally, Timor-Leste, Cambodia, and Vanuatu. But we really want to start working in a regional dimension. And we are aware that a lot of the things that happen in the countries where we work really depend on the environment around them. So surely we are keen to explore opportunities to work in the Pacific, particularly in the Pacific, given the network, extensive network of organizations and governments for the common objectives in terms of development for those countries.
Yeah.
And in terms of climate change and environmental sectors or other sectors, it really depends on the conversations we are going to have with partners and with communities, and that we are having with them right now. So it's something that we want to explore together in the broader network and what we want to retain is the technology development aspects of the work that need to be done in that space.
Yeah, so Shona, in terms of like, for example, with climate change, you know, we also have in there increasing people movement. We're quite aware that even if we were to change things right now and turn this whole trajectory around, what's done is done, and there will be people who are still impacted. And so people will be moving across the Pacific and so on. And even in the north of Australia, you know, part of our strategy going forward is to double down on our work with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in Australia. Some of those communities are already strongly impacted, and there'll be people moving, and people already are moving for these reasons. So how do we as engineers support them to stay if they want to stay, and if they have to move, how do we support them to move safely and set up wherever they need to set up? Yeah. But the idea is, I think, that we're not bound. We deep dive in a place-based way in the places where we set up a country office. But if somebody needs us somewhere and we can see that we can add real value and work with community in the way that we want to, why would we say no? We have access to so much resource at our fingertips in Australia through the engineering sector and the engineering community and the broader community, that we didn't want to start going, oh no, well, that's not WASH, so we can't do it. Or no, that's not in the country where we work, so we can't do it. It's just, we just wanted to be able to mobilise as much support as we could to those vulnerable communities who might be able to be supported by us. Rasika Mohan, I think you're happy to be unmiked. Yep.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Great, thanks for coming along.
Yeah, great to be here and great to see some and hear from some familiar voices and meet some new ones as well. And kudos to what sounds like an awesome strategy. It's really evident that that there's been a lot of thought as well as a lot of engagement that's gone into it. So thank you for that. I think this question has somewhat been answered, but I'm still keen to hear any additional perspectives. So I guess my question was really around, in the next 10 years, and of course it may evolve, you know, what will EWB do more of and do less of as a result of this strategy?
Yeah, great. Who would like to take that? we could actually go around the panel. What would you do more of, Ali, and less of, Ali, in education?
Yeah, sure. Oh, it's such a good question. Because often the exciting bit is that what do we have the opportunity to do more of because we can do less of other things. What I think we've been able to do less of recently is try to sell the argument of why humanitarian engineering in a university curriculum, why professional practice in a university curriculum must be so important. That in particular, the education sector is so on board with this, which is incredible because it means we can walk into conversations and start with the what do we want to do more of rather than get over the hurdle of why does this matter. There will still be those conversations in other forums, absolutely, with still work to do, but there's a lot less of that now. And what that means we can do more of, I think, is that we can go deeper with the partners that we are starting those conversations with. We can link together the students who are working on projects with the academics who have a really strong passion in this space and the capability to contribute and work directly with communities in a real-time basis. So students are learning, communities are receiving the outputs of innovation and contributing to that scoping process and being engaged along the way. And academics are doing research and supporting, and EWB is there the whole time. That's one example of what we can do more of in those really deep partnerships we have. But yeah, I might hand it over to someone else because otherwise I'll just go off on a lot of different tangents. But that's one that I think is exciting.
Yeah. Who'd like to go next? George, how about you?
We both jumped off at the same time, so thanks for calling. Yeah, it's a really great question. I think it's a good point of reflection for us, and it's one thing that we've been asking ourselves is throughout developing this strategy. And in terms of when we're looking at things like influence and more of and less of, really is probably I'm going to be more focused on some of the more of, But for example, we have so many great partnerships already and good opportunities to have strong conversations and so many great people within our network that are really passionate about how can I support the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And there's often a perception that when we're talking about that, it's about doing work over there or in another context, whereas really the UN Sustainable Development Goals are a real acknowledgement that it's every country's responsibility. So that really highlights or has highlighted a role for Engineers Without Borders in order to look more specifically at Australia as well and its role within the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the engineering sector here. And given that there is this groundswell of interest in actually what does it mean, what are the pressures on the engineering sector that make it harder to develop technology that really benefits all, and trying to find some strategies and ways, or also impart skills around how to have good, respectful conversations around that. And that's where the influence element really comes from, really, is about how do you use the position that you have as an engineer in that respect and not be throwing it away, but actually really leveraging that to help people understand elements of those issues and ways that can actually be, it can really be sort of tackled. So, yeah. And this is a distinction here maybe between influence and activism, whereas influence is really about, you know, we're really lucky that we have this and engineers do have a position at the table, so using that, but asking the good questions at the right time to really enable technology that benefits all. So I think hopefully that was a relatively clear.
Absolutely, because that's definitely a more of. Luella, do you have an answer for this one?
Yeah, I think certainly from an awareness perspective, we'll be trying to build awareness of what we do and really amplifying our storytelling. I think, you know, we're 17 years in now, so we've got a backlog of experience, a backlog of evidence that the way that we do things works and does have impact in vulnerable communities. So we really need to up the ante to make people aware of that and understand that. I think too, we also want to build that network out. You know, as we've said today, that network is critical to us doing our work, and so we want to create more opportunities for people to engage with us. Part of that will be trying to empower people to build on their learnings that they have with their interaction with us and start forming their own sort of groups to sort of steward that change in their own sphere of influence. So there's some key elements from, I suppose, and awareness and building our network perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question actually could be linked to this question. And Pete, it's lovely to have you here. Welcome. Are you happy to jump on? Hey. So Pete, one of our previous CEOs, so nice to have you here.
Hi. Hi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, so I've seen your question and it's a really good one. And I think it could also link into maybe if Gaetano, you want to talk about what we're going to be doing more of, but also it can link into some of what Pete's asking. So Pete, what's your question?
Yeah, thanks, Eleanor. And it's great to see you all again. My question is, what's the place within the strategy for seeding some more social enterprises like ATEC, biodigesters, with a view to leveraging the engineering, design, innovation and solutions that you have, and taking those innovations and impact to scale? Yeah.
Tana, you want to take that one?
Yeah, going back to the question of Rasika first, I would phrase the question in what we would do differently in a way. So for me, from the engineering program perspective, it's not to do more or less, but to be a bit more focused. And the biodigester is a very good example. Gavin was mentioning before and Peter was mentioning now. We really want to accompany the development of the technology up to the final stage, which is the technology is scaled up, can be marketed, can be used by people that need the technology to improve their lives. And therefore, this requires from our side probably the need to focus on some specific technologies rather than working more broadly in a sector as we were doing before in the water sector in Cambodia as an example. And going to your question, Pete, technology development can we already are working on examples of technologies that are very different and are part of different contexts. Sometimes it's really like the development of a product, and sometimes it's development of different kind of infrastructure, or how the infrastructure is used by government or by communities. So I don't think there is just one way to end up the cycle of the technology development, but surely there is a lot of space for some of those technologies to be adopted by social enterprises. And I'm thinking, for example, of the work we are doing now in Vanuatu, where with the environmental law, new environmental law, there is a ban of plastic in general and disposable nappies. And we are working with partner organizations to develop a product, so a nappy for children, that meets all the environmental criteria of the law in Vanuatu. And that kind of project would definitely end up with social enterprises managing that. So it really depends on the context, I would say, but surely something that we have in mind.
Yeah, great.
Great question, Pete. Hey, we've got questions flowing in now, but unfortunately we're pretty much out of time. So we will answer them. We'll be sending a follow-up message after this with the answers to those questions and with a new strategy publication, which is very beautiful and I'm very excited about. So that's coming in the next couple of days. But one final question before we wrap up. It's been a tricky year, to say the least. You know, the silver lining is that we probably couldn't have afforded a venue with the 300 people that signed up for this webinar. So that's good. We could do this online. But it's been a tricky year. So going forward, you know, how do we future-proof ourselves? How does this 2030 strategy, how we design this strategy so that it is a bit future-proof? Happy to take it however you'd like to take it. Who wants to go first? Let's start with Ali again. Why don't we go the same way we went last time?
Yeah, sure. So it's such a good point that this year has generated so many learnings, and our strategy was developed and already starting to set us on the pathway a few months ago. And in the education space, there's a lot that's actually served us really well, because while we've had to pause the overseas study tours that we know have unique value, we know there are transformative experiences that students and professionals are able to have through that opportunity, but we paused them. And it meant that we could think about what is the accessibility of those kind of learning experiences through remote platforms. And we have those as well. And so there's the opportunity for us to think about, and we've already started expanding, what those kind of virtual learning experiences look like. We have the EWB Challenge program, which has been using interactive 360 immersive resources for years now. And we have the opportunity to grow out what that remote learning looks like. And there's so many implications for that could be positive for the accessibility of those kind of learning experiences that would complement what someone might do through an overseas or an immersive trip. So that's something that I think will serve us really well into the future, and is always going to be exciting to be able to make sure that cost or time or travel is not a barrier to people who would like to engage.
Yeah, absolutely. Gaetano, do you want to build on that?
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Hey. Oh, Pete, yes?
Sorry, I think I need to be unmuted. I need to be remuted by the tech.
Tech help. Thanks, Pete. Gaetano, sorry, building on that
one. Was saying that the challenges that we face in our world, inequality, climate change, health challenges, they will remain around for quite some time. So I'm afraid. Therefore, the general context within the one we work will not change very much, but what has to change and has to be constantly adapted is the way we respond to the immediate needs going forward. And I guess the answer for us is to be able to be agile and we can be agile in the way we leverage partnerships and the way we leverage and mobilize people and volunteers that want to be with us in this journey, and so that our journey can become sort of collective journey to find solutions for those big issues.
Yeah, it's a really excellent point. George, do you want to, you've got anything to add there?
No, I think it's really been summarized well. And one of the things that I think actually EWB is just, is resilient because of this amazing network that has this energy to it.
Yeah.
So, and it sort of reiterates some of the point around the strategy, so many opportunities to support this work. And, maybe some of the hows and the what's change here and there, but the why is the same, and that's shared and will continue to be so. And we, do things like research and so on, we can make evidence-based decisions on what the what looks like and what the how looks like. But there's still so much opportunity, so much. We're really lucky that we have this unique position and this unique network of people we can really draw on to help target those whys that I think we all share.
Yeah, absolutely. Well put. Nicely put. Luella, wrapping it up, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think just in terms of that future-proofing question, I think just diversifying our fundraising pool. I think Michael had a question in the Q&A around this, so hopefully I'm answering this for you now. One of those ways would be, starting to get some more people keen to sort of become regular givers, so that we have that kind of really dependable, foundational kind of root of individuals that can feed into our funding, as well as growing our partnerships, as well as growing our pro bono partners as well. So I think, that fundraising piece will be a really critical component of future-proofing us from a financial point of view.
Yeah, you're so right. And we have these amazing regular donors. I just thank you so much to all of you who do give. And that monthly regular amount we just know is going to come in, that is the foundation of our agility. That means that we just know that we can plan and we can just move things around as we need to. So thank you so much for that. And that absolutely helps keep us future-proof. Fantastic. That's a wrap from us. I'm over to handing over to Gavin to finalise it all. And I really look forward to this journey with you all. Thanks so much.
Excellent. A little round of applause there for the team. Fantastic. So thank you very much, Eleanor, Gaetano, Ali, Luella, and George, for sharing your powerful insights about what's possible in our journey to 2030. And thanks to our wonderful online participants for being brave and asking the key questions. Now over to you. If you are already a supporter of EWB and have been contributing to the work we do nationally and internationally, thank you for all that you do. If you aren't already a partner, donor, or volunteer, we would certainly warmly welcome you to our EWB family. If you're like us and want to see a world where technology benefits all, then please join us, partner with us, volunteer with us, and donate towards that goal. When we work together, something truly remarkable happens. We have much more powerful outcomes than are possible working by ourselves. And I know what you're thinking. What can I do to help and be part of this amazing future? Well, there'll be some electronic messaging coming out as a follow-up to this session, giving you plenty of ways you can contribute. And it'll include a link to our 2030 strategy document, which we think looks wonderful because it is inspiring in reading through it and understanding more of the detail about what direction we're headed. We'll certainly ask you to please share that widely within your networks. We hope from what you've heard that you're inspired to join us in harnessing the potential of engineering to create an equitable reality for the planet and its people. Thank you for your participation, and we look forward to working with you so that together we can create a world where technology benefits all. Well, it's come to that time. On behalf of engineers, the volunteers, the staff and board, we now declare the EWB 2030 strategy launched. Round of applause as well. So thank you for your participation and enjoy your day.